Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome, I'm Frank Agin, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and your host for this episode of the Networking RX podcast. Today, let's jump right in. As I was talking with my wife about all that I've planned for the Networking RX podcast, she quickly reminded me to remember to talk to everyone at one point or another. Her point was well taken, and what she meant, more or less, is that the podcast audience is made up of individuals, and each person has his or her own level of networking expertise or networking prowess. It's much like teaching reading to a first grade class. There'll be some who are already reading chapter books, and some in that class who are just working through their ABCs, and then there'll be a plethora of others at various points in between. As such, the reading lessons can't be one size fits all. As the Networking RX podcast audience likely has a broad diversity of networking skills and understanding, we need to have an assortment of show topics. On the one hand, that's good, as it serves to expand the possibility of episodes, as I never want to run out of material, and that's something I'm sure any podcaster fears. On the other hand, this is a challenge. As I live and breathe networking, often I assume that everyone is at or near the level I'm operating at. Well, that's not the case. Again, much of my day, and non-working day as well, truth be told, is focused on networking and professional relationships. My time is spent reading about it, listening to related podcasts, writing about it, thinking about it, talking about it to chapters and franchisees of AmSpirit Business Connections, working with live audiences, and obviously through this podcast. Networking it's what I do. It's what I help people get better at. It's the lens through which I view the world. Now, I'm not claiming to be the end-all and beat-all when it comes to networking. I'm a work in progress too, and I'm open to learning, and I do every day. Nevertheless, I operate from a networking perspective on a very high plane. Moreover, I realize that there are likely some listening who are mere neophytes or ultra beginners to the networking world. They might not have the first clue about step one. That's why they're listening. They want to get started. They want to be better. Great, welcome. This podcast, the whole podcast series, should serve them as well. Obviously, you never quite know who's listening to a podcast or when they're listening, but I'll assume these people are part of the audience. In fact, outside of this podcast, I've met these people. You see, whenever I've worked with job transition groups, more often than not, there's always somebody there who has a story or a narrative that goes something like this. I worked at that company for 20 years. I did my job, and my job only required me to interact with the person in the cubicle to the left and the person in the cubicle to the right. I've never had the need to network, and I don't know the first thing about it. Now, I beg to differ that they never networked or don't know the first thing about it, but we'll leave that debate for another time, another episode, if you will. But if that's their perception, that they've never networked and they don't know the first thing about it, then their perception is reality. If you really don't feel that you know the first thing about networking, that's fine, and as a result you really feel as if you don't know what to do, chances are you aren't doing anything. If so, I can only guess, but I would imagine that at this point you're completely devoid of any networking confidence. Likely even the smallest networking step seems like the boldest of Grand Canyon leaps. So this episode is about taking the first small step. That step that serves to create that little nudge of momentum to get your network ball rolling. Now, if you're listening and don't consider yourself a networking neophyte, more of an expert or maybe a novice, don't give up on this particular episode. After all, perhaps you know someone who is this ultra beginner. If so, what I'm about to say can arm you with some insight you can share, as well as position yourself to become better to recommend this podcast to those that you know. At any rate, as I was thinking about the topic, I was struggling to think back to how I got started. I think I've always networked in some form or fashion, looking for an introduction to that girl, hoping to position myself to win an election in student government, or trying to glean information as to what will be on the U.S. history final, let's say. But when was the moment when I first did it professionally? You know, that moment where you figuratively plant a flag in the ground and declare, I'm here to network, to find referrals, to meet people, to learn what I can. Once I could recall that moment, I could then think back to what I did to get my network ball rolling. To be honest, I have no recollection. I know I was not great at networking from the word go. In fact, I could share some horrible mistakes, and probably will in time. But I did jump in with 2 feet, got after networking, as imperfect as I might have been, and didn't look back. So as I thought on this topic, I was wondering if maybe this wasn't the best topic for me to be talking on. However, before I gave up on it, I happened to be reading the book Option B, which is written by Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant. As background, Adam Grant is a professor at the Wharton School of Business, a speaker and consultant, and he's the author of 2 other books that I highly recommend, Give and Take and Originals. Sheryl Sandberg was with Google for a stint, and she's now the Chief Operating Officer at Facebook and the author of a book entitled Lean In, which is a spin-off of her TED Talk that she had done on the same topic earlier. And what I've heard about this book is that it's a must-read for any and all aspiring business and professional women. At any rate, in early May of 2015, Sandberg lost her husband unexpectedly as they were vacationing in Mexico. It was from that loss and her ongoing consultation with Adam Grant, who was a longtime friend, that they wrote Option B, Facing Adversity, Building Resilience, and Finding Joy. Throughout the book, Sandberg and Grant touch on various aspects of overcoming major setbacks, such as dealing with illness, handling career-altering challenges, and most of all, writing your life after the loss of a spouse or a close family member. In one chapter, they addressed the topic of self-confidence. In discussing it, they made the point that whenever we suffer gut punch-like setbacks, it tends to impair our confidence in all areas of life. As such, after the unexpected loss of her husband, Sandberg felt that she had lost confidence professionally. She had trouble focusing, trouble articulating, trouble with overall functioning at work. It was, in her words, difficult to see her way forward. When she shared these feelings with Grant, he gave her a short daily assignment, which he had gleaned from a 2011 Harvard Business Review article that's entitled The Progress Principle, Using Small Wins to Ignite Joy, Engagement, and Creativity at Work. At any rate, the assignment was simple. Each day, write down 3 things that she had done well throughout the day. This was a means of helping her regain confidence, amongst other things. At first, she documented accomplishments that would probably be laughable to someone who'd not suffered the unexpected loss of a husband. Things like she went to work, she got through all her emails, she focused for most of one meeting. Again, certainly you might chuckle at those, but for Sandberg, these steps were likely monumental. Nevertheless, through this, over time, mind you, she began to regain her self-confidence professionally. With each passing day, she felt as if she could contribute a little more, and then a little more. In essence, by documenting daily small wins, the wins got bigger and bigger. Certainly big enough that she was able to continue being COO at Facebook, and she wrote Option B. Okay, relating this back to networking, and more in particular, relating it back to our networking ultra beginners or neophytes out there who completely lack confidence relative to building a network or networking in general. Here's your assignment. You can probably see it coming, but document 3 things today that you did relative to networking. And I don't care how small they might be. Said hello to a stranger on the elevator, or posted a comment on someone's LinkedIn or Facebook page, or engaged in a few minutes of idle chit-chat with a colleague. Yes, I get it. While these might seem like laughable minor networking milestones for some of us, trust me, for others out there, these are Hercules-sized steps. Besides, like anything in life, it's where you finish that matters and not where you start. So chances are, if you're an ultra beginner to networking, that your milestones will tend to progressively get bigger and bigger and bigger. After all, saying hello to a stranger on the elevator won't seem Herculean after you do it 2 or 3 times. It just won't. It'll seem commonplace. Then in time, you can escalate that into a polite comment about a hat or a tie they're wearing. Then you can escalate that into a small conversation, even if it's just about the weather. And then you escalate that into having a cup of coffee to talk about the game. My advice is to keep a written log of the daily milestones. That'll allow you to see the progress you've made day to day, week to week, month to month. Trust me, as this list accumulates, you'll be amazed at all you've done. You'll be proud of how you've pushed yourself out of your shell, becoming more and more bold. And most importantly, you'll be inspired to do more and more as you want to continue to build your list. Of course, how you log this is entirely up to you. Purchase a notebook, create a computer document, find an app to do the trick. There's really no right or wrong way, as long as you take action and then diligently and consistently keep after it. At any rate, the point I'm trying to make to the soon-to-be non-neophyte networkers listening is that if you take these first 3 oh-so-small minor networking steps, document them, and then the next day take 3 more oh-so-small but slightly more bold networking steps, and commit to doing this day after day, progress will happen. It will. How do I know? This is an age-old formula for anything, getting in shape. It's similar to how you learn reading or math. And it's what Sheryl Sandberg used to help get back on her feet. The key is getting started in some small way, however small, documenting what you've done, slowly push yourself, and keep after it. Finally, to wrap up, remember, AmSpirit Business Connections has a unique franchise opportunity that involves helping small business professionals become more successful through a referral-based networking program. It only involves a couple hours a day, usually in the morning, a few days a week, and would be a great franchise for an attorney, accountant, realtor, business coach, consultant, or other professional to add on to what they're already doing and get better networked at the same time. Why just be in a business network when you can own the business network? If you or someone you know would like to learn more, please contact me using the email at the end of this podcast, or I've included an email in the show notes. Have a good day.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connections. All rights reserved.